First, I want to say on this lovely Wednesday evening, I want to wish you all a very nice evening. C'est vraiment un plaisir d'être avec vous ce soir. I want to say thank you to our BIA for collaborating with me, with my team, and co-hosting this town hall. Écoutez, je trouvais ça vraiment important de partager les faits saillants du budget 2021 pour nos entreprises d'Orléans avec vous, puis d'avoir l'opportunité de répondre à vos questions. Euh, Nous avons un bon budget. Je voulais prendre le temps de passer, je ne pourrais pas dire totalement au travers parce qu'en français, il y a 900 pages et in English, that budget has over 700 pages. But certainly, I want to highlight key elements for you as a business, but we'll also look at individuals, seniors, and other aspects of this budget. I want to say a special thank you to Councillor Catherine Kitts, Laura Dudas, and Matt Luloff for joining us this evening. And I know that our colleague MPP Stephen Blais will be joining us around 7:30 tonight. Écoutez, les PME, c'est vraiment le moteur de notre communauté et je suis très contente de la relation privilégiée que nous avons avec vous. In exchanges I've had with some of our business owners here in Orleans, I was happy to see that Budget 2021 is meeting some of the expectation and the acknowledgement that I heard in the last months. I will start with a short presentation to give you an idea of what is being put forward for our businesses by our federal government. And then we'll move to a more informal conversation where we'll be most welcome to ask any questions you may have. On some housekeeping notes before I pass on our mic to the BIA for some remarks, I want to remind you to keep your microphone on mute when you're not speaking. So everyone, if you could please mute yourself. You can raise your hand with the icon or leave a comment in the chat box if you have a question. And we will be recording the meeting that the BIA and we will be recording this meeting, I should say, and the BIA will then share it with its members. Puis, notre modératrice, Pascale Bazinet, que je remercie, pourra s'assurer de regarder vos questions et de les présenter lors de la période de questions. We will be happy to follow up directly with you with any specific questions that may not be answered tonight due to either the nature of the specific questions you may be asking or, unfortunately, our lack of time. So before I start my presentation, I will pass it on to the chair of our local BIA, who is co-hosting this town hall with us, Pascal.
Merci, Marie-France. Good evening, everyone. Bonsoir. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the session tonight. Un gros merci à notre MP Marie-France Lalonde for taking the time to explain the highlights or the Coles note, hopefully, of the 2021 budget and how it will impact our small business. Comme beaucoup d'entre vous le savez, la ZAC a été créée par notre communauté d'affaires en 2008. Et une partie de notre rôle consiste à défendre les intérêts de nos membres et à les tenir informés. So despite COVID, our BIA has been very fortunate to have 15 new businesses open their doors during that pandemic in our district. That said, we are all anxious to see the pandemic end and fully reopen our doors. As we get more vaccines into our arms, the light at the end of the tunnel becomes much higher and much brighter. And as restrictions are lifted, and we'll have news on that in the next few days, we would encourage you to continue to come down to the BIA and support our small business. It's important for the livelihood of our community. And with further ado, I would pass the torch over to Marie-France for the subject we're all waiting to hear on the budget. Back to you, Marie-France.
Merci, Pascal. Écoutez, j'aimerais peut-être juste demander à mon équipe de commencer avec la présentation. So it's going to be a slide deck presentation and just to have a visual on some of the highlights. So I hope everyone is seeing, if everyone is good. So I thought it would be nice to have, as I said, some visuals to highlight key budget measures for businesses as well as those supporting families in general in our plan for the green recovery. So let's start. I think we can all say that the pandemic has caught us by surprise. Just to do a small recap from a time. So March 2020, the federal government acted very quickly to help us cope with the pandemic. We started with support for individuals. Canada Emergency Response Benefit was created. The Canada Emergency Student Benefit was created. And the CERB, as you know, has been modified and changed since the September of last year to become the Canada Recovery Benefits, the CRB, adding also two other layers of support for the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefit and the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefits. So those were individual aspects of our commitment to people. We also looked at the business, and certainly from the very beginning, because of the wave and the lockdown, there was a need to support businesses. So we started with the Canada Emergency Business Account, the CEBA, and if you'll recall, we started with, I would say, almost step one of CEBA, and then it was adjusted as we were having conversation with each of you. You were sharing your frustration, your inability to tap on this program that was driven by the government, but managed at your local bank level. We also introduced the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. And again, the first tranche was 10%, and clearly, I heard clear and loud that this was not sufficient, so it was improved to have a higher threshold of 75%. On the rent subsidy, as you know, we had partnered originally on the program with the provincial and the federal government. This again did not meet exactly the support that we as our government wanted to provide you. So we brought a new act and created a Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy. In my understanding, this is a very popular program among many businesses here in the riding. Other aspect that you might have not been as familiar, it's called the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, the RRF, and those were for businesses that were almost falling into the crack, that still needed financial support, and it was a mirror just like CEBA. So those were very important measures on our business. Donc, pour les entreprises, on avait la subvention d'urgence du Canada pour le loyer, qui était d'une importance capitale pour nos entreprises ici à Orléans, le compte d'urgence pour les entreprises canadiennes, la subvention salariale d'urgence du Canada et le fonds d'aide et de relance régionale. Once we transitioned, there was also need for others. Families and seniors were taking into consideration. So for families, for those who benefit from the Canada Child Benefit, we did a one-time payment of $300 per child over above the regular benefits that families were receiving on a monthly basis. We also did very clearly, although from a jurisdiction, education is provincial, the federal government, and I have to say, I heard very clearly from parents and teachers and school boards that we needed to bring additional funding to help make class safer. So we introduced the Safe Return to Class program. And then on seniors, all throughout the pandemic, we couldn't exactly understand what will be the best way of supporting seniors. And we did a special one-time tax-free payment of $300 and $200 additional for the Canadian, for seniors who were receiving the guaranteed income supplement. And those were very important measures. And then last but not least, we brought in a one-time tax-free payment of up to $600 for Canadian living with disabilities. So those were some of the measures, and I could talk way more about the evolution of the discussion that took place between March and of 2020 and budget 2021. In between all this, there was a speech from the throne with strong commitment to continue to support businesses, and our fall economic statement, which would be providing more direct funding for businesses. In the midst of all this, we also have support for municipalities and to our provincial partners for vaccination, PPEs. There was a wage increase for essential workers and healthcare providers. That brings me to our conversation today, Budget 2021. Let me start by talking to you for your businesses. So some businesses have managed to adapt to the pandemic in order to succeed. And I have to say, Pascal was just making reference of how many businesses have opened during a pandemic, but there's also businesses that unfortunately had to close or that were significantly impacting their revenue due to necessary restrictions. And many meetings that I had with some of you as business owner certainly struck me very personally, because I used to own a business and I know what it means to take risk and certainly to have to pay mortgages and salaries. Je sais, je suis toujours très, très passionnée lorsque j'entends les entreprises parler de leurs difficultés, parce que ça vient chercher en moi, écoutez, les années où j'étais en affaires, puis je comprends très bien c'est quoi quand on doit s'inquiéter de jongler avec un loyer, les salaires. Puis vraiment, j'admire la force puis la ténacité des propriétaires d'entreprises qui font tout cela dans des conditions assez sérieuses. We need to get small businesses, the backbone of our economy, back on their feet. So Budget 2021 makes targeted investment in Canada's business so they can adopt new technology and hire and train workers. These workers will then have money to spend, spurring growth and recovery. And those are very important. So just to go on a more highlight, I talked to you about the Canada emergency, the rent subsidy and the wage subsidy. And one thing that was very important is that we absolutely needed, and we heard this very clearly from our businesses, that we needed to bring extension to those programs. And in the amount that we are forecasting, it's a $12 billion extension to those two programs to support the lockdown that is necessary to keep us safe. So the extension of these two programs is until September 25th, 2021. And I think what's most important for you as a business owners that you need to know is that these programs will gradually decrease in terms of the subsidy beginning July 4th in order to phase out as the economy reopens. And that's important because as you measures hopefully will be loosened in the next weeks and months coming, then the support that could be provided will be decreasing. I will talk about a new program that would counterbalance this, but that's important that if you're depending on those two programs, they are on a sliding scale starting July 4th. The other aspect also is that within the budget bill, within the law, we've also put measures in place that if, as the reopening is taking place and we see that some sector or some businesses are not able to sustain, or we would have more lockdown, unfortunately, due to the pandemic. We have provision in this extension to go until November of this year. So that's very important for you to know. And I think we made it very I made it very clear and loud that these proposed extension for those two were essential for you to get through the end of this pandemic. I'm just going to go to the next slide. I think we changed slide. Yes. So other measures. As business owners, we know that you had to do right by your workers. And with Canada's help, many of you were able to do when otherwise you might have seen some more difficulties. With the help of these subsidies, businesses have more freedom to make the moves they need to adjust to health measures and endure through lockdown. And there are rarely been a darker time to run a business than right now. And I know this morning we had a wonderful presentation with the BIA executive about how positive things are and should be as a forecast. And I don't want to sound pessimist, but I know that many businesses have been hurt, but at the same time, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and know that this budget and our government will be there for you to help you bring the brighter future. Which leads to me to talk to you about this. So I talked to you about the wage subsidy and the rent subsidy being a sliding scale. And as part of the wage subsidy, one thing that we know is that in some area, some businesses, some sector, the forecast is maybe not as quick as a recovery than in others. So we are introducing the Canada Recovery Hiring Program, CRHP, to sort of balance the scales of lost revenue. It is aimed at helping employers, so yourself, to continue
I think we've lost sound.
Oh, hello?
Oh, yeah, I think we have you back now.
On t'avait perdu, Marie-France.
Oh, c'est triste. Je voulais pas être perdue. Je suis désolée. I'm sorry. My connection is unstable according to what I saw on my computer. I'm sorry. So basically, I'm referring to a new initiative called the Canada Recovery Hiring Program. And I want to talk to you a little bit more about this, because this program will be to offset a portion of the extra costs employers take on as they reopen, either by increasing wages or hours worked, or by hiring more staff. It is available for active employees and will be available June 6th to November 2021. And you're going to say, hey, Marie-France, June 6th is coming very quickly. I have to agree with you, but that's what we have been aiming to start the program June 6th. More details will follow, I'm sure, in the next week as it's being put together to be offered to eligible employers. So eligible employers would claim the higher of the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy or this new proposed subsidy. Because I told you, because of the scale going down, it may be in your advantage to go under this new program. So this program, this support will slowly ramp down also by November of 2021, as hopefully the economy will have rebounds and your business and your revenue will have been back to pre-COVID numbers. Budget 2021 also provides $470 million over 3 years, beginning this year, to establish a new apprenticeship service. One thing important that we realize is that a lot of employees and employers have either realized that the labor force is not what they will need, so we need to adjust that. So we will be offering apprenticeship service for most likely college and universities and employer to benefit from. We're also helping employers train and recruit workers. One thing that we keep hearing is the fact that it is becoming more challenging. Certainly the pandemic, because of the halt on new immigration, new Canadian to help with our labor shortage, has really impacted. And also the fact that a lot of personal circumstances have made individual choosing possibly to stay home. So we're going to be helping employers, yourself, train and recruit workers. It's a $960 million over 3 years, beginning this year, for the new sectoral workforce solution program. And if you're going to ask me as a question period, Mary-France, what does that mean specifically? More detail will follow, but I just wanted to highlight this evening with all of you, because there's possibilities that you may benefit from. We're also improving the Canada Small Business Financing Program through amendments to the Canada Small Business Financing Act and its regulation. And these proposed amendments are projected to increase annual financing by $560 million, supporting approximately 2,900 additional small businesses. CEBA, a very popular program that was sort of the lifeline of many businesses. Just put in perspective, that Canada Emergency Business Account provided interest-free loans to 850,000 businesses in the last year. Le compte d'urgence pour les entreprises canadiennes est également prolongé. And as you all know, if a business repays their loan by December 31st, 2022, up to a third of the loan value, maximum of $20,000, will be forgiven. What's important is that the application period has been extended to June 30th, 2021. Again, this is something that we are supporting financially, but it is through your local banks, your financial institutions, that you would be able to be eligible. And I would encourage those that are interested to reach your financial institution. I do know that there is an ask for some businesses about the possibility of the government extending the repayment of the loan. I have to say, as I am meeting with businesses, and just actually yesterday when we did a roundtable with my federal colleagues and Minister Fortier, it was brought to our attention, and certainly this is something that we are very much aware. I think it is a little bit premature for us to make that determination, but it is something that we're aware, as anxiety and the reopening may not be as quickly for some businesses that anticipated. So rest assured that we are monitoring this aspect. Aussi très important pour nos communautés, c'est les festivals. C'est pourquoi j'étais vraiment ravie de l'investissement dans le budget en appui aux festivals ainsi que dans le secteur du tourisme. $200 million to support major festival, and also a complementing by $250 million provided to the Canadian Heritage to support local festival events and celebration. And you'll say, Mary-France, what do you mean? We won't have festival, or we may not be able to have them. 100%, but what we want is those operators that are coordinating festival, we want them back. We don't want them to fall. So we're going to be helping them financially this year to ensure that once the economy is roaring and our reopening is fully reopened in terms of our possibility that our local festivals still happen and our events and celebrations still happen. We are also very much focused, and I have to say this is one area that I think many of you would agree, the tourism. It is part of Ottawa's major financial component. And what we are doing at the federal level is we created a $500 million fund to establish a tourism relief. That will help sector adapt their product and services to public health measures, recover from the pandemic, and certainly we hope position themselves for future growth. Now let's talk about digital age. And certainly this is something that I think we all agree that the pandemic was, very, very difficult from a business perspective, but also just from all the technology component that we had to very quickly change our way, just like tonight, of interacting. So our budget proposes major investment, $1.4 billion in skill training and digital adaptation technology, and it will allow Canadian private corporation to immediately expand up to 1.5 million of eligible capital investment made between April 19 of this year until 2024. The government is priming business to adjust for the future and gives you the tools you need to fuel growth. We'll ask, I'm not sure if we changed our slide. So helping small and medium-sized businesses as we move into the digital age. Our government will be launching the Canada Digital Adaptation Program, expected to create thousands of jobs for young Canadians and help 160,000 small and medium-sized businesses adopt new technology. Here in Ontario, I have to say we're familiar with this. This was our main street. And BIA, you were amazing partners in helping Invest Ottawa, reaching to our businesses sector. It was such a popular program that we decided to bring it at the national level. So that's very important that it will continue. I will have more information about when the new funding will be available as it's being brought nationally. We will also be providing $1.4 billion over 4 years to give access to training and advice, provide micro grants for smaller businesses for tech adoption, and create work opportunities for youth to help the adoption of new technology. We're also proposing $2.6 billion over 4 years on a cash basis starting this year to the Business Development Bank of Canada to help small and medium-sized businesses finance technology adoption. And there's more. Il y a plus. Budget 2021 includes many more investment in our businesses. Among them, il y a encore plus d'investissements pour nos petites entreprises que je voudrais aussi vous parler ce soir. Supporting business investment by allowing immediate expensing of up to $1.5 million of eligible investment by Canadian-controlled private corporation made on or after budget day and before 2024. That's significant. This eligible investment will cover over 60% of capital investment typically made by Canadian-controlled private corporation. And we hope that this will encourage capital investment that can accelerate the recovery. This includes digital assets and also intellectual property. We're also enhancing the Canada Small Business Financing Program, as I said, through amendment to the Canada Small Business Financing Act. Proposed amendments that we will be bringing forward is the expanding loan class eligibility to include lending against intellectual property and startups' assets and expenses. It will also be increasing the maximum loan amount from $350,000 to $500,000 and extending the loan coverage period from 10 to 15 years for equipment and leasehold improvement. And the last is expanding borrowers' eligibility to include non-for-profit and charitable social enterprises. Most of us, I have to say, in business, some of you may know exactly all this reference. Some of you have accounting that, or if you're on this conversation and you're an accountant, you know very specifically. But this is huge in terms of possibility as a business to really adopt that digital component. We're also, and that's a very popular one when I mentioned this, we're looking at lowering the cost of doing business by reducing credit card transaction fee. How often do we hear this from our very small business? On veut réduire les coûts d'exploitation en réduisant les frais de transaction liés aux cartes de crédit. So the government will engage with key stakeholders to lower the average cost of interchange fees. We will ensure that small business pays similar fees than to the big business and will protect the existing award points of consumers. I wanted to talk to you about this, and I'll go quickly, but one thing that we all can sometimes wonder, and especially so close to the Quebec bridge, one aspect is the barrier for internal trade. On veut vraiment travailler fort pour éliminer les obstacles au commerce intérieur. In our budget, we're proposed to allocate $21 million over 3 years starting this year to enhance the capacity of the Internal Trade Secretariat to support Canadian Free Trade Agreement. One thing that I will make a reference, and maybe that will make you smile, is technically speaking, if you are going to Quebec and you bring the alcohol to this wonderful province of ours, that's not acceptable. That's not actually, you're defining the law. If you are going in the Atlantic in Newfoundland and you want to bring some alcohol, well, technically you cannot. And a lot of businesses have been trying to work between interprovincial government to bring their business in other part of Canada, and it's been a struggle. So that's something that I know at the provincial level, there's some willingness, and certainly we have some willing partners that are closer to this, to identify and work with the federal government to really identify the barriers, including the licensing and professional certification requirements. So one aspect also is if you're a nurse or an engineer in one part of our country, and let's say in your business, you're looking for that skilled labor and that person to work with you, well, there's also that challenges. So we really want to focus on to pursue internal trade objective through new and renewed discretionary federal transfers to the province. And also want to talk to you about the community revitalization and supporting jobs and growth in all communities. As I mentioned to you, we do have the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, and that RRF has preserved more than 125,000 jobs. What we are proposing is $700 million new over 3 years, starting this year, for our regional development agencies to support business financing. And very important, and that's something that I want to share to you, is the budget also proposed $500 million over 2 years starting this year to the regional development agencies for a community infrastructure as part of the new Canada Community Revitalization Fund. And I'll have more to say about this as the Parliamentary Secretary of the Minister of Economic Development. This is part of our portfolio. So hopefully very shortly, I'll have more to share. And certainly I know many including the Prime Minister and our Minister, will want to share this huge opportunity for many, many people to apply. I want to talk about Orleans more specifically, and certainly I hope that in some of this discussion, you can think how we in Orleans can benefit, and as a business owner, you can benefit for some of those programs. But we do have a program that every year in the past few years have been expanding. It's called the Canada Summer Job Program. It provides quality works experience for youth aged 15 to 30. And this program helps youth find a work opportunity for the summer, gain experience, and put their skills to use to help our community. Specifically this year, Orleans have a record amount of approved positions. So a total of 94 organizations will be receiving funding through the program. 624 job positions have received support, bringing the total amount of funds allocated to Orleans to our businesses to over $2.4 million. And this is for this summer only. Je veux vraiment vous remercier pour votre engagement dans ce programme. Je sais à quel point cette aide est importante pour vous comme entrepreneur, comme employeur, mais aussi pour notre jeunesse qui cherche souvent cette première expérience de travail. Next slide. Oh. So Budget 2021, I want to also reflect a little bit of outside the businesses, but it does have an impact on you as a business owner, because if we're able to support families and individuals, it does have an impact in their ability to support local businesses. So I want to go through very quickly other aspects of this budget. So for our families, certainly here in Orleans, families are at the core of our community. And this is why the federal government made an historic investment of $30 billion over 5 years in childcare and early learning services. And that will reduce fee for parents with children in regulated childcare by 50% on average by 2022. And create a $10 a day childcare services by 2025, 2026 across our country. You know, it will drive economic growth and certainly will increase women's participation in the workforce. And many times we hear employers who are looking for that labor, for that skilled person to work. And unfortunately, in every family, it's a little different, but mainly the woman will stay home to raise the children because of the childcare fees. So this is something that I'm very proud and I'm very happy that our government's taking this initiative. In terms of for the individuals, and I think that's very important, in our budget, measures are being extended to continue helping everyone stay afloat. So we will be extending the Canada Recovery Benefits to September 25th, 2021. We're also extending the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefits until September 25th, 2021. We're enhancing the employment insurance sickness benefits from 15 to 26 weeks. And then if we go to slide 9, I think, yes. So for our seniors, providing a short-term support for a one-time payment of $500 for those who are eligible for old age security payment this August, directly to seniors age 75 and over. And next year, in June of 2022, you will be receiving, every seniors who are over the age of 75, a 10% increase in the old age security. Other aspect for seniors that we will be launching is the Age Well at Home initiative. It's a $90 million fund that will help provide services to community group and seniors live longer at home. In terms of other aspect of measures, we're also expanding and enhancing the Veterans and Family Wellbeing Fund for projects that will support veterans during the post-COVID-19 recovery. For women, As we rebuild from the pandemic, Budget 2021 proposed investment that will also ensure an inclusive and feminist economic recovery that works for everyone. And we are very lucky in Orleans to have a business sector where women thrives. So we do have a woman entrepreneurship strategy. We will be providing up to $146.9 million over 4 years, starting this year's in our strategy to help women returning to work, having access to finance. We're also establishing a new apprenticeship service that will help skilled workers and especially young women start careers and find well-paying jobs. We're also starting a woman entrepreneurship strategy acceleration, which will provide greater access to financing, mentorship, and training. And we're also providing funding. We'll also support the Women Entrepreneurship Ecosystem Fund and the Women Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub. Last, in terms of other than, specifically for you as business, but for equality in business. Le budget 2021 réaffirme l'engagement du gouvernement d'aborder les questions d'égalité. An additional $51.7 million over 4 years, starting this year, to the Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada and the regional development agencies for the Black Entrepreneurship Program. This was started, I would say, within moderation in the last year, and we saw the benefits and the application were exceeding our funds. So we are putting more money over the next 4 years to help our Black Entrepreneurship Program. We're creating a new anti-racism grant. We're also establishing a new Black-led philanthropic endowment fund. We're also in this budget proposing to provide up to over $100 million over 5 years, starting this year, for a small business and entrepreneurship development program, and $50 million to support a new inclusive growth stream to increase access to venture capital for underrepresented groups such as women and racialized communities. We're also proposing $15 million over 2 years, starting this year, to Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada to extend the Rationalized Newcomer Women Pilot Initiative, which will continue to improve the employment outcomes and career advancement. For the green recovery, massive investment, $17.6 billion in green recovery that will help tackle climate change challenges. We're building a net zero economy by investing in world-leading technologies that makes industry cleaner and reduce pollutions. We're reaching its targets to conserve 25% of Canada's lands and ocean by 2025. And I'm very pleased to see that our government set new target to reduce emissions by 40 to 45% below the 2005 level by 2030. We're helping more than 200,000 Canadians make their home greener by providing close to $800 million on an accrual basis over 5 years to the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation to help homeowners complete deep home retrofits through interest-free loans worth up to $40,000. I just want to make sure. So in conclusion, I think that we can certainly open the floor, Pascal, for questions. J'aimerais maintenant passer le temps aux questions. Donc, Pascal, je te laisse la parole.
Merci, Marie-France. We have a first question from Lisa Aucoin asking about the financial help for the festival, if it would apply to conference also.
Lisa, thank you for your question. I think, in all fairness, it's I would have to verify specifically. So we know that there's been the significant impact on conferences that were able to be hosted here. And I don't have that answer specifically for you, but we can get it. And you have a follow-up too? I'm reading your little comment. Yes, Lisa.
Yes, I'll just come off. It might be a little bit easier. The biggest barrier to my business at this point, as you know, Marie-France, is the ability to travel. We work in 42 countries. We host events all over the world. We're a global leader, of course, based here in Orleans. But you know, the money that my business makes supports the Orleans community. This is where we spend our dollars. And the hardest thing for us right now, we have an event that brings 2,500 people to Canada from around the world, and it's supposed to happen in September. We will go virtual again for a second year, but we're just looking. You know, you can't start global travel on 1 month's notice or 2 months' notice. We've seen that travel to the US has been put off for another month. Is there any point in time where we're going to start talking about travel again? Because for my business, I can operate virtually, but this is huge for me, knowing when I can get that part of our life back and part of our business back.
So I think from an event perspective, I think you will be able to apply, you know, at least this year under that festival events, and for the conference, as I said, I'm not sure. In terms of what possibility there is for us to what, you know, has been, I would say, discussed at a very high level. Lisa, I'll be very frank with you. So basically, our Minister of Health has talked to her counterpart internationally with the G7 and G20. Our Minister of Tourism has spoke with G20s and G7 regarding a possibility of what they would call a vaccine passport. It is a conversation that's live right now that Canada is looking. Some countries have already brought forward the decision a little bit more open at this point. Canada has, and I was just having this conversation with Tanis as we were starting just before. Dr. Tam gave some, I would say, at least a beginning of a hope. 75% first dose, 20% two dose would give us a little bit more flexibility throughout the summer about what could possibility. We also know Mr. Legault released his plan based on his modeling and his projection and his sanitary, you know, sort of public health directive as to what would be available and accessible throughout the summer. What Public Health Canada is saying also is very important is the fact that once we have 75% of Canadians with two doses, and we are saying this, you know, over and over, that we are very confident that by the end of September of this year, every Canadian that wants to receive a first and a second dose, they will have access to. We also know from Health Canada doctor just last week who went on national television and say, if the supply continues and the distribution among the provincial government is continued to be rolled out, and municipal partners have been extraordinary in rolling the supply that they're receiving by their province, well, the second dose could be earlier than what the 4 months that we are proposing at this point. So, you know, when I look at our government and the most recent announcement that 9 million vaccines will be coming in July, over above the 9 million in June, and I think it's over close to 8 million in May. Well, you know, we're 37 million people, and not everybody could possibly want this vaccine, which I hope that everybody who's eligible will go for a vaccine. So, Lisa, the reality is that there is a strong possibility that we would be having live conversation now, leading to possibility of maybe June to August, some based on the rollout of the vaccine, with clear direction for you as a business owner who travel, who solely depend on bringing people here or having your people go somewhere and interacting with the world regarding how a vaccine passport could look like. We in our caucus, we're just starting to have the very high level, but I know our ministers are starting to engage more specifically with their counterpart. I think there's a willing, we're trying to coordinate that approach, but now EU has set some practice, and then we know United States setting. That's going to be very confusing for all of us, but we need to come to an international conclusion about what it means. But I think if I look at the EU passport, our vaccination, what we're providing are under their list. And as long as you would have 2, you can go in. So we're just waiting to reach that herd immunity here, closer, that we'll be able to share more detail about what it would mean for Canadian. Oh, okay.
We have a few other questions.
Yes, I'm looking. Yeah.
Yes. One for the digital grant access. They're asking if the small business will have to be aware, or the IT companies and the consulting companies will be able to offer that program, and quotes, a bit like Digital Main Street program.
We don't know, Stéphane, we don't know yet. So there's lots of the budget was a month ago. There's lots of detail that are being penciled and decisions being made based on the dollars that were allowed for the departments, for those ministries to go forward with the funding. Ministers will go to Treasury Board, get sort of the AOK, and then the programs will be rolling out. I will take this back, though. We'll make sure, Stéphane, to follow up with you specifically as soon as we know more. Digital Main Street was a partnership, as you mentioned, and it was highly successful for us because we partner with the local people who knew, who were able to deliver the programs on our behalf. So I would suspect the government cannot do it all. So there will be that synergy, but I don't know to which extent at this point.
Thank you. We also have a questions from Doug. Considering that all the regions in Canada are reopening at different times, will the subsidy reduction be adjusted accordingly?
That's a very good point. Doug, I will keep this, like I say, this is something that has been brought to our attention. If the province, we're not sure exactly here in Ontario, but the indication is that we will not have the color code of the reopening. That seems to be what's being shared in the media as information right now. But certainly the aspect for us is to ensure that every business that are impacted, there's flexibility within the government. And as I said at the very beginning of the speech, from the very beginning, we knew that some programs that we were launching did not exactly meet your need as business owner, and we were quick to address and to be flexible. And I would suspect it'll be the same, Doug, as we don't know. I'm very interested regarding the Canada Revitalization Hiring Program. That's one that I think I want to really get a handle on to see how we can, because the credit that I read in the note that I received, you're looking at about $1,100 up to $1,100 per employee. So it could be a significant amount of money for those hard-hit sector, and promoting and supporting you to offer a higher wage or more hours so you can bring back those employees and sort of, I wouldn't say bring incentive, but, sort of challenge them to come back to work earlier with you.
Thank you. We also have a question from Monsieur Gazi saying he had trouble accessing the CIBA who should he address to get help?
So it depends for what reason CBI he was unsuccessful. I would strongly advise him to reach his financial institution to find out why he was not qualifying. And if it is not because of if it's because for his business he doesn't, then the RRF is usually where we would be helping him. So I could definitely easily send him the information. Happy to reach out to him personally to provide him with our website as to where to go for the RRF program. Because if you do not qualify or you were not successful in your application for CEBA, the RRF possibly is the alternative as a program.
Thank you, Marie-France. We have an interesting question from an accountant saying, what resources are going to be given to CRA to reduce wait time for all services, especially telephone service?
Yes, that's so I think I was looking at, the percentage. So since 2019, CRA received 83% more of the call volume increase. And CRA was instrumental in most immediate programs that were delivered to Canadians. Certainly in the speech from the throne, there was a strong commitment to look at third party to help with that volume influx, to also look at hiring. And within the public servant, there's been movement and shifting for some of our employees who possibly can help manage the influx of calls. So I know it's been challenging, not to say the least, and certainly you want your answer and you don't want to wait hours and hours on the call. But we did contract a third party to help the call center volume during this particular time of tax season. And like I say, they are certainly Minister Laboutier and her team are hiring more people to hopefully offset this enormous demand on our wonderful public servant who works at CRA.
Thank you. Is there any research grants available for small businesses?
Research? Say that again.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the grants. Yes. Research grants. So I would say there's the Innovation Assistant Program that I would probably refer you to. I think the business, is Kilika, who's asking this question. So you can go on the nrc.canada.ca. And that would be a place where hopefully you would find the information. Also on April 17, 2020, our government announced $250 million in funding for the Innovation Assistant Program, IAP, to assist Canadian small and medium-sized enterprise. And you can go again on the nrccanada.ca for that program. Those are probably the one that I would recommend that you start looking for in terms of grants. Very important aspect. And again, happy to follow up more directly with that information.
Thank you, Marie-France. One thing we regularly are being asked about, or comments we receive at the BIA, is the condition of St. Joseph and the visual pollution and how it's not walkable and bikeable and so on. Is there in the new budget any place we could get funding for the revitalization of St. Joseph?
So there is lots of money in infrastructure. I think I have to say we have wonderful counselors who are working very hard on a new CIP and working to, and I see many of you here who are part of this initiative with our counselors in the St. Joseph revitalization. I think once we have the plan in place, approved in council, And we know that because of the LRT, the significant positive aspect that this will benefit from individuals who possibly wants to bring higher density, look at road infrastructure, bring cycling infrastructure, a little pathway where we can sit down and benches. So since 2014, this has been something very dear to my heart. I call it Saint Joseph revitalization. And I know that we collaboratively are working, and I know Matt, Catherine, Lise, and Laura are working very hard to bring this plan forward. Once the city have sort of make a decision as to how would that unfold, and then they can apply for some grants at the federal level to, start the process of bringing more concrete aspect of funding, the same as what we've seen, for instance, in other parts of Ottawa, where the federal play a key role in that infrastructure improvement. I will very much work very hard once we have this plan in place to see with our councillor and my provincial colleague to and you as a community leader and the BIA and businesses to see how much money that would, entail, and then we'll start the conversation at that point.
Thank you, Marie-France. We know we always have your support also, so thank you. We've gone through the questions. We could open it to the floor if wanted. I think Doug had a follow-up question about SEBA. Doug?
Yeah, thank you. I just want, there's a flaw in it that I think has to be addressed. I applied for the first one.
Yeah.
And I got it. And in between, I changed bank accounts structure at the same lending institution. So I'm at the same bank. I changed bank accounts. I am now no longer eligible for the second one. Even though the HST business number and everything has not changed, there's a clause in them allowing to award it that the bank account has to be open for a certain threshold. Mm-hmm. And, so the fact that I've done a clerical change disqualifies me. The financial institution has been going back to the federal government now for 3 months with no success so far. So I think it's worth, some clarity there. I understand that you want to keep the account open, but it's pretty clear that there's a succession in the business. Yeah. And it was done for a change in accounts, not so much that the business was transferred or anything like that.
Yeah, they're probably considering you, Doug, as a new business now, and that's where probably that flaw of the program is about, and that could be the reason. So because by transferring account now, for whatever reason, they're seeing you as a new business, then you will not be eligible, although you have the same HST and same business number. It was just a transfer. I can flag this to our Ontario desk more specifically. Yeah. Happy to do that, and Nick and our team can follow up with you and maybe put pressure to see if we can resolve this.
Because the business number is 9 years old and it hasn't changed, and I'm still making submissions to it every, right through the entire transition period. It's the same number making the payments on it, when I pay the taxes on it. So I think it's just an oversight when they did it. They used it as a qualifier, but it's a bit of a hole. The other thing is this. Can you just update us on the CERB and how that is going? Because right now that's our biggest restriction in hiring people. We're trying to hire people, but they won't take a job because they're still getting paid. Yeah. And they won't, we just had somebody walk out last week. They said, I don't need this. I've got my month working and I'm just going to go collect for the rest of the summer and not work.
I think this is what we've been listening. I have to say, even this morning during the presentation that was shared with us in terms of survey and what he's hearing from the businesses. I heard that very clearly from many of you over the last year. CERB is now CRB, the Canada Recovery Benefits, and it's, you know, still for some Canadian and some people, the only way for them to manage their household and you know, continue to pay their bill, Doug. But I hear what you're saying very clearly. I think that in many aspects, that's why the new program that I was just reflecting with you, that I hope within the next month, I'll have more specific information, actually less than a month, if it's going to start on June 6th. That would be, in my view, the incentive that you're looking for as a business, and that person is looking for to transfer that CRB employee into a workforce environment. And what that means is that we would be enhancing your payroll to bring that incentive to that employee, so their overall daily life, and sometimes it's because they might have the kids at home, or you know, their parents are not too sure if they should work right now, and like there's many reasons why some people are not coming back to the workforce, and certainly I'm not there to bring criticism to that individual, but I have to help the employer and the employee to transfer that maybe a little bit of hesitation. And sometimes in your business, because and I don't know you particularly, but as a business owner, you may not be able to give them full-time employment or a wage because you have not been able to pick up the revenues right now. You're hurt as a business. So that new program will bring all those criteria, particularly from part-time to full-time, and that threshold would be credit that you would be receiving. So let's say you say, well, right now I can only offer you 25 hours. And this person says, well, I'm better off to stay on CRB because then I can pay my rent and whatever, my car payment, whatever it is that they co-depend on. But you don't have that 40 hours a week. So that 15 hours you could go and pick it up under this new program. So I'll have more, but I'll take this back. We have National Caucus next week, and I'll make a point just to say that this is clearly what we're hearing from many businesses is and again, in our region, because in some other part of Canada, it is different, but here in Ottawa, and particularly in Orléans, it seems that we're having difficulties to re-engage with that labor force to come back to work. So we need to find ways to do that.
Yeah, my latest problem was a 40-hour work week, getting paid $22 an hour. And they walked away from it.
But CRB is $13.50 an hour. So I don't know, Doug. That
they don't have to work.
Yeah, but you know, if I have I will, like I say, I tell people, if you're comfortable to live on less than $2,000 a month, and you can pay your rent, and you can pay your bills, and you can pay your expenses, this is less than minimum wage, right? And if you're offering them at $22, which is extremely generous, you know, I don't know. Let me put some thoughts to this, but I will, like I say, I heard this very clearly many times where our workforce is just not, but also one thing that we heard this morning, and in your area, it's, you know, it wouldn't be applicable. But one thing that we know is that that workforce will need flexibility, will need benefits, will need advantages. And in your area of restaurants is different. I'm not saying to you specifically, but like, for instance, some employer may want to bring their employees back physically to work, right? Have them in the office. And we know that that's going to be a challenge for many, because that taste of working from home is now very attractive. And as an employer, you know, they will have to be that flexibility. In your case, it's not possible. You need, we need them there. So let me take this back, Doug, and I will follow. Like I say, I will definitely make sure to raise that as a concern.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions on the floor, Marie-France.
Excellent. Mais je vais juste en français aussi, je sais qu'on a parlé beaucoup anglais. Si vous avez des questions en français pour moi, je peux y répondre facilement. C'est souvent plus facile, même des fois. Okay. Well, Pascal, I think either I bored you completely or I shared enough information that now you're overwhelmed with many, many numbers. And I wanted to share some numbers with you. Je voulais vous partager certains chiffres parce que pour certaines personnes, ils vont dire, Marie-France, écoute, l'argent va où? Vous dépensez, you guys, you know, it's a budget of over $100 billion. Where is it going? Well, there's aspect that it's COVID related now, is to support businesses, support families, support the provinces with their, you know, public health restrictions. So that's very important. And then the second part of the budget where it goes is the recovery, right? Is certainly looking at how do we transition from the last 15 months and when we can think about reopening. So it's providing the tools that businesses will need, and that's all about digital and adaptation and, you know, bringing some incentive to businesses. And that's the next. And then the last one is definitely building better, greener, more resilient for the future. And somebody says, you know, Marie-France, I feel that we need to be bold. This is the time in our history where as Canadian, as Ontarian, we need to find ways of being adventurous and you know, challenging system that sometimes on healthcare, for instance, and many other sectors, we've seen how this pandemic has disproportionately affected many of our communities. Donc, c'est très important. C'était important pour moi de vous parler un petit peu de chiffres. Puis je vais juste vous dire qu'il y a aussi, pour conclure de ma part, il y a encore beaucoup d'informations dans le budget qui n'ont pas été écrites. So there's lots of technical detail of this budget that right now are still very high level, and there will be opportunity where we can engage with you on some of the criteria. So never hesitate as you are finding out more about the budget that you say, Marie-France, you know, make sure that this is happening or this is not happening in part of criteria. And once we release those programs, if you feel that, hey, this is really not going to work, I'm always there to listen. And I think, as I said, the government has tried very hard to try to adapt and be as flexible. And I have to give a shout out to our public servant. You know, there's always that sentiment about, you know, public servant and how they operate and how slow a government can do. Well, there was a significant amount of support provided, and it's not because of us politicians, it's because of our great public servant who quickly adopted. And my last shout out will be to all of you, à toutes vous, pour avoir fait des décisions, to have created an environment that is working for you right now. You know, quickly adapting and changing the system, the way you operate it. And I want to say thank you for all that efforts and certainly from a federal component. We're going to be there with you all the way. On va être avec vous jusqu'à la fin. So Pascal, I'll let you maybe sharing some closing remarks.
Merci, Marie-France. Et puis, pour te rassurer, tu as répondu à toutes nos questions, donc c'est probablement pour ça qu'on a pu l'écourter. Donc, merci. Et merci surtout de ton support continuel que tu nous donnes à la communauté d'Orléans. C'est vraiment apprécié. And thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. And in addition to the information, session tonight. There's other ones coming up if you're interested. The next one, and we talked about the reopening. Well, the next one will be on business reopening workshop on May 27th from 1 till 2 p.m. And we will be focusing on how to reopen slowly and safely. Lessons learned from past reopenings and so on, so we don't do the same mistakes. Safety plans, framework to introduce with key points and public health measures. So that will be addressed on the workshop on May 27th. So please reach us. And also, Marie-France talked about the CIPs in Orleans. There'll be a public consultation on June 2nd. Please come. And you'll have seen how you can tap on some tax breaks for the properties owner. So you'll want to attend this one. And for a fun one, more light, for my lighter subject, it'll be the BIA happy hour on June 10th between 5 and 7. And we'll be co-hosting it with one of our businesses, the Royal Oak, and we'll have entertainment with local musician TJ Morrison. So please attend if you want a little fun, at least Zoom meeting. And if you have any questions on our coming events, you can go directly on the BIA website. So thanks again, and wishing you everybody a good evening, and thank you again, Marie-France.
Merci, Marie-France.
Hey, before we leave, can we take a picture? If everyone can open the camera, I could take a souvenir. It's up to you if you want to show your face. That would be great. There you go.
Look at all these beautiful faces. We've missed you all night.
Yes.
You look so great.
Well,
Everybody looks better than my COVID haircut, that's for sure.
I was going to say, let's not go on haircut, guys, please.
I did it. I mean, hey.
Mr. Fraser.
Rita's sitting.
I knew you were going to do that.
There you go. Okay, so bear with me. Just smile. I'm going to take 1 or 2 screenshots. So just be patient with me, please. Another one.
Everyone has such great dentists.
I was going to say, this is a moment of COVID that I will definitely not miss. Standing in front of my screen, smiling and not knowing what's going on and who's taking picture. I have to say, I will not miss this when we don't have. I look forward to see you all in person, by the way. Au plaisir. Bonne soirée à vous tous. Et encore une fois, faites de l'excellent travail. Bravo et merci, le BIA.
Merci.
Thank you, Marie-France.